Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast. I am your host Craig Fowler, and on this occasion to look back over 2 rounds of games over the festive period, it is Tony Anderson. Tony, I know that you are choked with a cold, so I thank you, we all thank you, the listeners thank you, everybody thanks you for persevering, as Hibs are wont to do, persevering and coming on this show.
Yeah, I just saw my face on there, I look like I've been crying deeply. But they're tears of happiness as Hibernian FC ride the wave, the crest of a wave into 2025. But yes, of course, the people that listen to this have given me some of my favourite opportunities I've ever had. So if I can't peel myself out my bed to talk about how good Hibs are, then for them, then what else can I do?
Well, we may as well start with that. So we're not going to talk through 12 individual matches. What we'll do instead is we will do a winners and losers, and that should cover the vast majority of what's happened over the last couple of rounds. And yeah, there's no better place to start. Usually we start with winners. Actually, I'll ask you. You know what? As a guest on this show, I'll ask you. Do you think it's best to start with the winners of the festive period, which is Hibernian Football Club, or do you think it's best to start with the biggest losers from the past couple of games, which is obviously Heart of Midlothian Football Club?
I mean, it works either way for me.
Let's start with Hearts then. Let's get it out of the way. That's why people listen. People are not listening to this for you to be cheery. They're listening to this for me to be fucking miserable. So I've got 2 losers that are Hearts related, and we'll get on to the most important of the 2 in a second. But I'm going to start with Craig Halkett. Is a loser from the last couple of days. I think if there's anybody, so obviously Craig Gordon is the kind of headline grabber for his blunder in the 99th minute against Ross County, which helped Hearts throw away 2 points that were, I mean, you've never seen a game that looked assured that you were going to win it as much as that one. That County were doing nothing. County done nothing all game. There was not even real much pressure. There was a little bit.
Yeah, it was a football match, so of course County were doing fuck all.
When you say that, they won 3-0 at Dundee.
I suppose.
But yeah, County were dreadful. Hearts were in complete control of the game, despite the fact it was a Hearts team that looked from the outside going in like it was going to be quite weak. Shankland wasn't playing. Liam Boyce was in. George Grant came in for the cold to start in the middle of the park alongside Benny Beningame, but obviously one of them was enforced, but those changes worked very well. Liam Boyce was surprisingly very good. George Grant was good in the middle of the park.
I was going to say, is Liam Boyce kind of like a winner from this, because he's went from being like almost retired by the fan base to now, can we maybe use him in a football match now?
I mean, yeah, but I still kind of think like it's one game, and it's one game in a season full of evidence to the contrary that he's got anything left in the tank. So you're always going to be able to pull something out the bag. The fact
against your former team, right? Fine, I can do it. Suddenly, you turn the clock back.
Exactly. The fact that it happened at a place he used to call home probably isn't that much of a coincidence as well. But if there's one player over the 2 games you can really point the finger at blame at, I think it is Craig Halkett. He was partially responsible for all 4 goals that Hearts conceded. The opener at the opener at Tynecastle, he gets out-jumped and out-muscled. Doesn't see old Dwight Gale coming for the winner. Also gives the ball away in the first place. It's a really shit header for County's first goal. And he's just come on the park, and we'll get to that decision soon enough. He's just on the park. In that situation, when you're straining your neck muscles to try and send it back up the field, just don't do that. Just head it back out towards where the cross came in. Head it out for a corner. Don't try and get it all the way up the park, because you're not going to be able to do it. And he doesn't. He's able to head it about 6 yards. And Josh Nisbet is waiting there to put the ball in the back of the net. Into
a packed penalty area.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. Like, let it, at that stage, 97th minute, it's all about hitting flush off your head, isn't it? It's about smashing it. It's to a place where there's just zero danger. And like you say, that is just straight back where it came from, at the pitch, as hard as you can with all your neck muscles.
And then, obviously the equalising goal up at County it's definitely Gordon's fault more than anybody else's. But the initial contact on the ball comes from Affetti, who Halkett just loses. And like as the ball goes forward, Halkett just seems to wander off in a direction. I'm not sure if he just completely lost the flight of the ball or whatever. It was very windy. but he leaves his man. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't try to really track the run. He just kind of assumes that everything's going to be okay behind him, and it ends up not being okay. And yeah, it's definitely Gordon's fault, and that may sound a bit harsh on Halkett in that instance. But if he follows Affetti, he's got a very good chance of getting to that ball first and heading it away, and he's doing his job as a defender. And if he's not winning balls in the penalty area, and these are all crosses that have come in, and that's the one thing Halkett's really got left, the fact that he's now, ever since his injury issues that lasted pretty much a season and a half, that he looks slower than, he was never quick to begin with, but he looks even slower now. He looks back to being heavier like he was when he first joined the club. He kind of really seemed to slim down for the kind of tail end of the championship season, and then Hearts being back in the Premiership. And if his abilities to turn and to run and to do all the other stuff, and he's limited on the football as well, if he's obviously not going to do any of that, then he has to be good at winning the ball in the air, because that's what Craig Halkett is good at. But over the last 2 games, he's not been good at that, and if he's not doing that, he shouldn't be playing.
So, I mean, just when did Halkett come on? He didn't start yesterday.
No, he came on. Right, okay, so that leads me...
Did he come on for the collapse?
Yes. So that leads me to my second loser involving Hearts, Neil Critchley.
Hey!
So, huge questions now must be asked about his suitability. Like, I know the one as soon as he got the job, but then there was obviously a slight upturn in results and performances, and Hearts fans got into that kind of siege mentality of, well, everybody's slagging him off, so fuck you, he's our guy now, kind of thing. But you could forgive how shite we were, kind of like, because of how bad we were under Naismith, and there's a lot of players on low confidence and how unbalanced the squad was. So he's had to deal with a lot coming in, but he never makes changes in Hearts' favour. Often his subs make us worse, and over the last 2 games, it's happened in each of them. Edinburgh Derby, Jan Danda on for Blair Spittle. As soon as that happened, that was that. That's a mistake. Blair Spittle and James Penrice is like the most functioning part of the Hearts team. Now, Spittle wasn't having a great game against Hibs, but the goal comes from him. The goal comes from him kind of feigning to go inside, going down to his left, putting a ball in the penalty area, which finds Shank on his header. Bashiri scores. And you can still see it points in the second half when he was getting the ball and he was just doing the intelligent football thing of, you know, opening himself up or cutting back, finding the space, and then finding a Hearts player, you know, switching play, opening up another avenue to attack.
And he's also like showed the game the week before at Tynecastle with a long range shot that came out of nowhere, really, against St Johnstone, didn't it? I mean, that's what won the game, and that is like completely out of nothing.
Yeah, and that's quality he's showed so far that Danda has not.
No, and he hit the bar yesterday, Spittle, didn't he? So I mean, it's like every single game, there's like long banging shots that are either going in or very close. And like you said, he's involved in the goal that Hearts score against him. So he's basically involved in literally everything good. Like you say, he drifts inside, which is nice, which gives Penrice the room to go down the left-hand side. And Danda's been just rubbish. Danda's been crap. He's been the worst. He's been the worst of the four that they took from the bottom half of the Premiership, if you like.
Yeah, Danda was horrendous against Hibs. That was like an all-timer bad performance, and then everything he touched turned to shit immediately. But then Critchley compounds that with the late move to take off Adam Forrester for Craig Halkett in injury time against Ross County and move Daniel Oyugoke to right back. It's been shown in recent weeks that, and you saw it in the derby, because he changed it up in the derby to put Halkett back in and move Oyugoke to right back. But we've seen recently Oyugoke, not a great right back, but he's a good centre half.
I'm gonna disagree and say that I thought Oyugoke was your best player in the derby.
No, I thought he was as well. I thought the derby was one of his better performances at right back, but over the course of the season, he's not been a good right back. Forrester's played better than him at right back over the course of this campaign. But I think recently we've seen Oyugoke playing a back four. And when he first moved there, I think it was it the Aberdeen first game he first started to move in there? I think it was. I think a lot of people were a bit nervous about that because he obviously hadn't had the best start to his Hearts career. But every time since then he's played in the centre of defence, especially in a back four, he's looked good there. He's looked good. And he was good again against County. And County weren't threatening. So Critchley talks about being comfortable in this game. But then he's made a sub that he didn't have to make. Just keep it as it was. County weren't threatening. Keep the back four as it was. Don't change things up late in the game. So that there's just, you're bringing out a player into the most, I know it's, you can understand the thinking because he's bringing in Halkett thinking, right, all County are going to need at this point in the game, all they're going to do is to put balls in the Hearts penalty area. So let's bring on my best.
Premier, backs to the wall, head in defender.
Aye, yeah, you can understand the thinking, but at the same time, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
And also
that's what you're trying to do.
The player you're bringing on's not playing well. And like form-wise, he's not playing.
He's not in good form at all. His confidence would have been low after the derby.
And you're putting him into like a high-risk situation where, as you're saying, you're just going to be constantly asked questions because it is just going to be balls in. So it's like prime time for an error, I would say.
Right, Tony, do you have any Hibernian winners to throw out?
I found it nearly impossible. I just need to come to the line of just Hibernian Football Club in general. I mean, I know it's not the done thing for this, but I was finding it very difficult to really narrow in on one. Obviously, David Gray's probably a really, really obvious one. Something like maybe with Critchley, what you're talking about with Halkett there, is maybe we're moving into a stage where Hearts maybe have to start thinking about changing shape and allowing going to 3 at the back, which maybe protects Halkett and allows him to do what he wants to do.
Bring the 4-3 back. Bring it back.
Yeah. I was only joking. But I don't know, again, because it's just about, as has been seen with Hibs, is that if they're not very good, maybe you need more of them. And then you can, and every defender sorts to get to specialise. But that's maybe a bit short-sighted as well, because obviously there's other elements of Hibs' team that have benefited from that, rather than just the back three. It's allowed Yuan to play in a central role, which has given him freedom just to drift and having no defensive responsibilities, which has suited them really well. And there's been a blend of sort of for Gray where he's made big decisions like that, and then also where maybe there's been a tiny bit of luck, which you always need for it to completely change. I think he's fallen into something with Yuan and Boyle, where he played them up front against Aberdeen, and sort of Rubizic really didn't like it, and that sort of worked really well with Josh Campbell going in behind him, and that's something I was doing a Hibs podcast, and I was talking about. Obviously, he got to the stage, Gray, where he was brave enough, where he had these sort of favourites for a long time, and they were letting him down. That's the frank truth. And he didn't seem able to change it. And eventually, he basically binned Josh Campbell from the squad for weeks. And Martin Boyle was not seen for weeks on end. And then since he's brought them back, they've both been absolutely tremendous. Like, Boyle's back to being vintage. And Boyle's one that, despite his age and despite his like people thinking his body's failing him, he's one of the few that started like the 3 games in the really, really tight period there and played absolutely brilliant in them all. And especially like the Hearts game and the Kilmarnock game yesterday, he's like a workhorse winger. And it's like, and I know you spoke about it on our podcast, it was like the vintage Boyle that you're seeing again yesterday, because Hibs went into the Kilmarnock game when you're thinking, almost guaranteed this is going to be a scaffy performance. The win's high. You're playing Kilmarnock 4-0. It's like 2 teams coming back from the Lord Mayor's show. Kilmarnock have beaten Aberdeen 4-0, which is a brilliant result. And Hibs have obviously won at Tynecastle. So it's like 2 teams feeling good about themselves, but extremely tired, both carrying injuries, having to make changes with their best teams. You're like, right, whoever's winning this, it's just going to need to get a bit of the rub of the green. And then both the teams are in form. So it was you knew, like, despite the fact confidence was high in both teams, it was going to be exactly the type of game it was, and Hibs did get a bit of rub of the green. But I wanted to go. It's just incredible how things can change so quickly in terms of like just the connection, like what a couple of results can do, especially away from home. Like the celebrations at the end of the game at Pittodrie, where everyone comes over and like that builds a connection, and obviously that feeds into Tynecastle. And then suddenly you've got Yuan, who you think is completely gone. You know, this guy he's fighting with fans. You're thinking there is no way back for him. There's no way back for the club. And suddenly now he's got a bit. He's got a bit where he celebrates with the strip on the corner flag, which is obviously hilarious, and at Tynecastle especially, how he has to run away from the sort of like Hearts guy trying to stop him coming over, and he jogs away from him, and he does it again, and then Rocky Bashiri with the Santa hat on, who had adversity through that game, which he thought would ruin it, but then that builds up there, And now suddenly you're looking at the team and every player's had to be involved because there's been injuries. I mean, yesterday, Hibs were down to, at the moment, Hibs are down to one in the centre half and they play three. And that one's Rocky Bashiri because everyone else has been taken off injured. You're saying Yuan went off with injury. Dwight Gale can only play for about 8 to 9 minutes a game. And it's all just every single player is now contributing and has now built a connection with the fan base. And it's just, wow. And then Joe Neal's been playing through an injury. He's having to come off after an hour and 45 minutes and everyone's getting involved. Even Triantis, who is the most wild football player I think I've ever seen, is like you swing from the sublime to the ridiculous in like 30 seconds. But we are getting to stage where we think, well, Triantis, all his attributes are big enough that, yeah, the fact that he gives the ball away and he's clearly learning a new position and he's only 21, that it's still going to be worth it due to all his agility. And then finally, Nicky Cadden is now like a talismanic figure. And it's like hard to imagine. We signed him late after the season started. Could have signed him anytime. So it was definitely desperation when Hibs signed him because it was after the season had started and they could have had him anytime. They're his brother. They could have phoned him at any time they wanted. So it tells me it wasn't. And now Nicky Cadden is just like epitomised. His work rate is massive.
Mm.
He fights for everything. But then on top of that, he has a wand of a left foot. And he puts in crosses, whether they're in open play, set plays, and then obviously he's got a brilliant shot. And that's 7 goal involvements in 9 games for like left wing back, and he missed a penalty in that as well. It's just, you'd never have guessed it, never.
Is he not? He wouldn't have got an assist for the first goal against Hearts because it comes off Campbell, then hits Rolls and goes in. So, and also I don't think you do get assists for own goals, but. It's realistically 3 assists in the last 3 Hibs goals because he swings in the cross for Gale and it's his corner which is headed in by Trantis in the Killie game as well. So yeah, he's been. What was the game recently? Was it the County game? Hibs against County at home. Yeah, we're like it's like in that game when Hibs were struggling, the game plan was literally just like give the ball to Nicky Cadden.
Aye. You never, as I said, it was an underwhelming signing. You look at who he's played for. It's like fucking lower league Scottish teams in fucking Barnsley. Like, no, you're looking at it like, But I must admit, every time you read back on the fans, he was popular with every fan base that he played in. But I thought it's because like he's a work rate and he gets in people's faces, and I mean that like his own teammates. He's like a standard centre. He's a bit of a leader. He looks like a nightmare. You know, he looks like a nippy cunt to play with. But Hibs absolutely needed that. And it just seems frightening that Hibs are now at this stage of going into a St Johnstone game where you'd obviously fancy Hibs to win because St Johnstone are just so crap and they play so open. But then it's like Hibs are getting Rangers at Easter Road and you're like, well, there's the way Rangers are going, there's these are the bits that start falling your way, Fowler, when things turn your way. It's like Hibs play Aberdeen twice in the period that Aberdeen are clearly faltering, and that allows Hibs to take big confidence because you're playing a big team who's playing well. So you grab that at that point. And then you play Hearts at Tynecastle, which is always such a massive game, but they're on the hop. And then you build your confidence for there. And like I'm saying, then suddenly you get Rangers at Easter Road. And you didn't know. Then suddenly you're like 1 defeat in 10. You know, you're getting to that level and you're right back and everything's forgotten. And it's January and you can sign players. And always forgotten, Ian Gordon, what a guy. He knew it all along. But yeah, I was only joking. I think everyone's still very much anti the board, as you would say. But it shows that like with David Gray, that's the one good thing that they always done is that it was always buying time that they wouldn't turn on the actual team. Yeah. And that's allowed the time to go in it, and it's turned just, it's hard to even fathom.
Well, kind of sticking with the game at Easter Road, but focusing mainly on the match before then. Fraser Murray, I had as a winner.
I've got him as a winner here as well, aye.
He was brilliant for Killie as the pub to Aberdeen on Boxing Day, including getting a couple of assists. You could probably tell me about how he played at Easter Road, but I certainly know that it's not harmed his chances at all of staying in the team whenever Matty Kennedy returns. That Danny Armstrong, and what has not been a great season for Danny Armstrong overall, and there's also rumours that Hearts are after him in January, and he'll probably be heading somewhere else regardless. Does not hurt his chances of staying in the team at all that Danny Armstrong then becomes the 900th Killie player to be sent off this season. which I thought was a very harsh decision, but still, and I've always liked to look at Murray, but he's every time I see him, I always think like he just looks like a good footballer, but never seems to have put it together for any kind of consistent run until now. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Firstly, how was he against Hibs at Easter Road? Did he continue? Obviously, he wasn't quite as good as he was in the Aberdeen game, but was he still one of Kelly's better players?
Yeah, he was the best. He was Kelly's best player, easily.
Right.
And he was the main danger man through the whole game. He sets up. It's his lovely wee pass inside that sets up Vassell. When Vassell has that really, really weak finish, he tries to open his body up and he just rolls it right into the keeper's arms. And it's also Fraser Murray who hits the shot, which creates the red card situation. And like I'm saying, you know things are getting the rub of the green when your goalie's spilling shots and you end up with the opposition in 10 men. Great. How's this happened? But it's like it's like they've got the Fraser Murray from the Championship over the and it's been a few weeks now, because he's so direct and it doesn't. I feel like you can play him anywhere in midfield, Fraser Murray, and he'll do kind of the same thing. He's really, really direct, but he doesn't care about going inside or outside. So if you're a defender, there's no showing him one way, and that always means that the defender backs off, which means you're almost guaranteed to be sort of getting into the box and sort of creating a chance or putting them under immense pressure. And he puts in sort of like, which I think is a must if you're going to play for Kilmarnock, he puts in a high volume of crosses. So, I mean, I'm not surprised Hearts have came looking round Kilmarnock way for a player, because Hearts are obsessed with crossing at the moment, as far as I can see.
I didn't realise this until recently. James Penrice leads the league in crosses.
I mean, every game, and whenever I hear your manager speak, it's like, when Critchley speaks, he always talks about how many crosses you put in, like that's sort of like something that you base your entire game on. Well, great. Put in 900 crosses and 889 of them went fucking nowhere. Brilliant.
Yeah, it was like those Rangers teams that used to lead the league in crosses every season and still finish with 15 points behind Celtic.
So he works, but again, another like hallmark that you have to have, you're going to play, because he works hard defensively, and obviously Kilmarnock play McInnes. He always plays sort of hybrid formations now, whether it's with 4 or 3 at the back, everything's, so there's quite a lot asked tactically, I think, of the Kilmarnock players, or even just work rate wise, because they're maybe being asked to cover, like, do multiple roles. And Fraser Murray looked quite comfortable doing that. So we could hit a stage, and this is what happens with players. This is what happens. I'm going to mention someone else later on in the winners. It's a period of time at this stage of the season where players can come out of nowhere, because you just have to go into the well as a manager. People start falling to bits, and this is where you fall into things that you didn't expect you could. I gave an example about Gray earlier with some of the things that he's had to do that I've ended up going, all right, shit, this actually works maybe completely better than anything we're doing. And it's same with Kilmarnock here. Fraser Murray, it's a few weeks, but you still look at him as a squad player. But now you're thinking, right, now we've got someone just as good. Now it doesn't. Losing Danny Armstrong, is that as much of a nightmare as it should be? Maybe we'll sell Danny Armstrong for a few quid in January and replace and improve another area of the team, because we have this. And I think you just see players come out of nowhere in this period of the season because the manager's forced to make decisions. And Fraser Murray's now went from looking like a squad player to now, like, I mean, last few weeks, the Aberdeen game, like, I mean, we're talking, Fraser Murray looked like one of the most dangerous players in the fucking league. He was just absolutely... He had them. You just watch the highlights. I watched the highlights, absolutely burst. I was drunk, obviously, during the Christmas period. On Boxing Day, after it came out. And it was the one thing that did stay with me. I messaged someone, was Fraser Murray just running amok in that Kilmarnock game, just on the ball constantly? And it was the same yesterday. And as I said, he was working his socks off. So fair play him. Fair play him.
Right, we should probably, let's think the big story. So let's go Rangers. Rangers picked up 1 point from 2 games. Any hope of the title race being on at all has now been completely crushed. Do you have a Rangers loser? I've got one. I wonder if we have the same person.
I was going to have Proper.
All right.
But I was also going to say the Rangers squad is a loser, because it's like he went to the entire... Every single player seemed to get a run, and he split it in half and used it all. And and he only picked up 1 point in the 2 games. That doesn't feel good in terms of your squad. If you've every single player's pretty much got a run for the game, and there was barely a period that was good, apart from sort of Igamani maybe for in the second half yesterday. That would get you worried. And for Clement, it's like, I do find it a bit annoying that for him, he had the bad game against St Mirren that was stupid, but he'd stumbled onto something that was working really well for a period of time. And it's like going like that and chopping it and making 7 changes off the back. I know there's tiredness. I think you try and make a point, and I always think Clement's a guy who looks like he's trying to make a fucking point. And he's always in the background, sort of having it off with I feel like he's always having a go with the board. He's sort of playing chess all the time, try to make sneaky sort of statements, not like verbally, but through his behaviour to try and say, I need this. And like yesterday, it's like it fucked him over trying to be that when he had something going good for him.
I think to me it was that he made far too many changes. 7 changes was too much of reaction. But there is a bit of sympathy because the way Rangers played against St Mirren looked like a team that did look a bit, if not physically tired, then kind of mentally tired, because just a lot of games been happening for them recently, and them in particular because they've also been playing in Europe as well. But because they were so against St Mirren, they were just so lethargic in the first half in particular. They really couldn't get going, and that was their strongest team that they had out, really. Like, other than obviously they're missing players at centre half, but like if you look from the midfield forward, they had Raskan and they had Diamande, and then ahead of them they had Cherney,
Igamani,
and Hadji with Bezrami as well as a number 10. So that's probably their first choice 11. So I can see why he made changes. That there was just those players are maybe starting to look. It's not really an excuse, but just they are starting to get a little bit tired. So okay, let's freshen things up. But maybe
make a couple in both games.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe don't go with quite your full strength team for that St game. Maybe make 1 or 2 changes and then make 1 or 2 changes in the next game to try and keep it fresh, rather than running a team into the ground and then changing it wholesale so that there's no cohesion in that first half against Motherwell. But I had a Rangers loser, and that was Jack Butland.
Oh yeah, wow. He's been stinking for ages.
Let me cast your mind back to March when there was an actual article on the BBC website that said Jack Butland left out of England squad. like that was news. And then we had Mikey Stewart during a Morton Hearts game, no less, saying that he was baffled that Jack Butland wasn't in the England squad because he was a better option than Jordan Pickford.
Pickford just saved a penalty from Erling Haaland.
Butland is just crap now, isn't he? He's just crap. Like, he seems, every time Rangers don't win a game, he seems to be at fault.
Right at the heart of it.
And he certainly was against both games here. He clatters Greg Kiltie for St Mirren's penalty, which opens the scoring in Paisley. And then in the next game, he makes the wrong decision with Apstam's opener for Motherwell. He goes with his hand, and he should just be concentrating on his feet. If he goes with his feet, it's not hit that well. He's Apstam's under pressure as he hits it, and he's kind of falling over, so he can't get full can't get full contact behind it. But Butland just tries to move his body the way that bodies don't move to try to save it with his hand, and it just goes between his legs and underneath him into the back of it. And then to top it off, he punches the ball into his own goal and has to be bailed out by a shite-bag referee.
Yeah, because
rubbish.
I know that there was probably a hand on him, and it probably is a foul, right?
I don't think it's a foul, but I could see why VAR didn't overturn it.
Yeah. But he's weak as anything. It's just like, and he's punching the ball in his own net by that time. And if you're punching the ball in your own net, we're hitting a deer, I think is safe to say. But he's been bad for a while now. And he was one of those guys, because there's so many other issues at Rangers, it took a long time for them to turn on because he was so good for a period, changing a football fan's mind from what they've decided about a player must be one of the most difficult things to do in the world. Because changing someone from he's shit to he's good, it's very difficult. And then vice versa. It's like people get a reputation and then that's that. But I think we're getting to the stage where now it's obviously spreading through the team as well at Rangers. It's obviously, because you saw it with the way those 2 disallowed goals are really close together yesterday in the Rangers Motherwell game as well. So that's obviously a bit of blind panic. And it's just like, is there any part of the Rangers team though needing a bit of surgery? So like you're talking about overhauling the entire squad, including the goalkeeper, and we all know that goalkeeper's probably the most annoying position to fill, as you can see by every Scottish Premiership team in a season outside of what Aberdeen and Dundee United. Everyone else
Celtic.
is having everyone else is having bother with their goalkeeper or 2 or 3 goalkeepers at some clubs that they're having bother with. So I was going to say another loser from this game, maybe Stuart Kettlewell. Like, I don't mind it. I don't mind the old bit. The meltdowns are becoming constant, and they're like and now to the point where it's like against Rangers, they obviously Tony Watt. It could be a foul. It's one of those 50-50 decisions, and that's got him to the stage that he's getting sent off. That kind of decision. It's clearly there's a hangover from the head knock where referees are playing God. That was a good one. And then did we not have another one recently with Casey's red card, which was never a red card? So that the proper, do you remember the one I'm talking about? When Dan Casey got red card.
Oh yeah, of course. The Friday night game recently.
Friday night game. So that's obviously bled into this. So now when a 50-50 decision's gone against him, he's absolutely flipped his lid. So he's going to have to watch soon, because otherwise he's going to end up just with such a reputation that he's going to end up never allowed on the touchline. But don't get me wrong, I don't mind it, man. I quite like that Kettlewell's a wee bit hot-headed, and I like my manager going for the throats of everyone. I'm a Neil Lennon guy, fair enough. I quite like it. So, but with Kettlewell, like, we could be getting to the stage where there's a reputation building, and now anytime he does anything on the touchline, he's going to get suspensions and stuff, which won't be great.
He said he did kind of apologise for it in his interview, but he says like I got so emotional because he's wanting to defend these players, and I wonder if it's one of those things that when you do this occasionally, I think the players would really like it and really appreciate it, like the manager going all out to stand up for you and to be in your corner, because obviously like the rest of the time he's probably shouting at them constantly.
yeah. Well, going by his behaviour, my assumption, yeah.
But but it is happening so often now that you do get to the point where players must soon, I don't know if they're there yet, but they'll soon get to the point where they're just standing there rolling their eyes going, Christ, he making it about him again? So he's very much teetering on that, because for the first kind of extended period in charge, he did seem a bit more mild-mannered, and then recently just seems to be losing the rag constantly. I mean, with some good reason, that has to be said, to defend him, but you can only do it so often before you start to become a bit of a caricature, and he is in danger of becoming that. Motherwell related, I actually had Tony Watt as a loser. Bad luck more than anything else. You always hate to see it when one of your own players blocks a certain goal from one of your other players, and that's what happened at Celtic Park when Tony Watt inadvertently blocked Marvin Marvellous Colletta's header that was going to go in the back of net and equalise at Celtic Park, and would have been in the second half as well. So, I mean, they probably get beat because away at Celtic, but you never know. You never know. And then he has 2 goals at Fir Park against Rangers ruled out. One for offside which to be fair was offside. Dan Casey was the first to head the ball in that opportunity, and he definitely went a little early. And then the decision with he doesn't really do much to Butland. He puts a kind of arm on him, but if you're going up with a defender for that, you're never ever getting called for a foul. Solely because goalkeepers are a protected species, and always have been. And then but also had mentioned, I don't know if you saw this because it wasn't on the sports scene highlights. You can only see if you saw the game live. It gets into this really weird skirmish with Vaclav Černý in injury time, deep in injury time.
Oh no, I did not see this. No,
right, it was the most weirdest thing ever. Like when Černý goes towards him, and then there's a wee kind of just a typical coming together, and then Watt kind of turns and runs, and he definitely wants to initiate something because he tries to run through Černý, but he doesn't really do anything. At the last minute, he almost kind of puts his arms up as if to say, like, "Oh, okay, I'm just going to kind of run at the back of him." Černý then kind of goes like, "What the hell are you doing?" and kind of flails his arms out. It doesn't really catch Watt, but Watt goes down,
of course,
and then Černý goes down as well. And it ends up with both players on the deck without anything really happening to either of them. And then, Czerny in particular seemed to be raging about it afterwards. And then ultimately there's a VAR check and there's nothing to answer for. And Kevin Clancy books the pair of them. Personally, I hope he just booked them for wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, but for embarrassing themselves.
Yes. So yeah, Tony will lose not for really stuff he done in terms of his actual play, but just some bad luck and some whatever the hell that was with lack of Czerny.
We just have to mention Mashiwanishi's goal, man.
Class.
Proper. Like, I just love stuff like that. Like those goals, because we mentioned like David Watson with his touch one against Aberdeen. Specifically, I think they've become my favourite type of goal when someone does like an outrageous turn or touch, and then but then they finish it expertly. So it's not like, so even if you do the touch first, you can't then sort of like, it doesn't work the same if the goalie touches it and it goes in, or if you sort of like mishit a bit and it trundles and it manages to go to the bottom corner. It needs to be like an amazing turn and then an emphatic finish. And Mascherini's is definitely like that. It's such high quality, and then he curls it and bends it straight into the bottom corner. And what a signing he's been, and now he's giving us stuff like that. Really. And he's good laugh, and he's just he's becoming like a really, really fun. But watching it looks like Motherwell have they've tried every combination, but it looks like Stamatolopoulos, Maswanishi have become the real front two, which is just exactly what we all need.
A front two that nobody can pronounce the name of either player.
Yeah, great, thank you. But yes, the two of them seem to have really found their feet, especially Stamatolopoulos, because at first, is that not how you do it?
Stamatolopoulos.
Fine, whatever you say.
This is
Joey friends.
No, have you ever seen the terrible Godzilla film for the 90s with Matthew Broderick?
Yeah, the one that Jamiroquai done Deeper Underground for.
Yeah, there's a running joke with that he's got a Greek name and just everybody mispronounces it through it the whole way through. That's Apstab. Just call him Apstab.
Yeah. But because he started to really find his feet. Because at first there was periods with him, I was like, oh, I really don't know. He's giving me the Dylan Venti attributeless striker vibes, when it's like, oh, yeah, he's a goal scorer, quote unquote. We're going to need more than that, man. But yeah, he's starting to do it, and maybe they both just like the manager going fucking skits all the time. Maybe that's all it takes.
Right, we should talk about Jim Goodwin.
Oh, what a winner! They chuck bottles of vodka at me if you're after it. The second coming of Jimmy Tillin, the second coming, and now he's only 3 points behind them. He must be sleeping well.
Yeah, I mean, the figure of fun, the man who lost to Darvel, put Aberdeen fans to the worst 10 days in the history of their club, the man who relegated United in the same season, the man who United fans didn't even like or really want after they got promoted. A goal down at McDermott Park, managed to come back and win that one, and then deep into stoppage time winner against his former employers. And like you say, all the talk about how great Jimmy Tillin has been, I think Jim Goodwin deserves a lot of credit for what he's done with Dundee United this season. They do have a strange knack of scoring goals in stoppage time, which I can't tell. I don't want to be too churlish about it and don't want to say like, well, that's luck that will run out, because it will to an extent. You just can't bank on scoring goals so late in games all the time. But it does speak to like a never say die attitude that he's probably instilled in the players, because he does have a lot of average players, average Scottish Premiership calibre players, playing well above their station. And I don't want to be too harsh and pick out individuals now that I've called them average, but Kevin Holt was in the Championship with United for a reason. Like, he was in the Premiership before with Dundee.
Mm-hmm.
He went through periods of looking good. He also went through periods of looking quite bad. But recently, since he's come back into the team, because at the start of the season, he was sometimes played in midfield, and that experiment worked well for a couple of games and then really didn't work well. And it was changed like 30 minutes in to that 1-0 defeat to Rangers, when it was just like one-way traffic, and then from that point forward, United actually played a bit better. But he was kind of the odd man out of the centre-half group, because they had Ross Graham on the left side of the back three. Then Graham gets injured. Holt's come in and been excellent since then. And due to Declan Gallagher being suspended, he have to play in the back four against Aberdeen. And just at centre-half in that game, brilliant as well. Best player on the park. Like, not only did he get the goal, but he was just superb in general at stopping Aberdeen counters. And there's so many of these guys in the squad. Like, Glenn Middleton's back to. I mean, Glenn Middleton always has these periods.
Yeah. That's my head in Glenn Middleton.
He is back to them. Like Gallagher, everybody wrote off was kind of finished after his St Mirren spell. And when he went into the Championship, well, that makes sense because it's at a lower level. And then when they come back up, you're like, not sure if that's going to work. He's been great this season. And even somebody that hasn't been here before, but like Vico Savelj, when he first arrived, United fans didn't really think much of him. But since he's been played in the middle of the park, he is, games like the game against Aberdeen, he's just everywhere. He just like runs himself into the ground and is just a disruptor.
I think it's a really, Dundee United do have it's like a squad full of people who've been questioned. It's a squad full of people with a point to prove. Because even Adebayoga gets questioned fairly regularly and does pretty mad stuff at times, but then he pulls at good performances and he's really quick. So yeah, it's like a ragtag bunch of misfits that's sort of proving everyone wrong. And then we have to love that. Come on, surely everyone has to enjoy when groups of people do that. And I think Dundee would chop off their arm to have Kevin Holt come back to them because they're absolutely desperate on anyone who can play centre half at the moment. And that Kevin Holt goal, by the way, that is absolutely brilliant. To get the power on that from a sort of really like an up and under long throw when he's falling back. Every time I watch it, I think he's injured. That's surely fucked his neck. The way he does it, I'm like, I really don't like the way it looks. Whenever like gave me like, oh yuck, and it's when he's straight up and he's celebrating. Yeah, so it's like just fair play to them. Even Dalby, I mean, he's come in and he wasn't doing incredible at Wrexham in the lower leagues in England. They were basically they were replacing him, and then he's coming out and now he's the top goal scorer in the Scottish Premiership. I don't know if that's still the case with Kyogo's double, but Dalby, he's certainly he's got 9 or 10 goals in the Scottish Premiership season, and anyone who watched A View from the Terrace, I absolutely love Dalby. I love strikers like that, and he's been absolutely first class. So yeah, Jim Goodwin, it's sort of like he's merged a team of his own, of people going through their own the same thing as him, and now it's a big fuck you to the rest of Scottish football as Dundee United somehow last minute winner and backs them all defend their way to the third place in guaranteed European group football.
So I just had to check. Yeah, Dalby is top goal scorer. He's got 9. Kyogo's got 8.
There we go. So brilliant.
So
and Walton, like you're saying as well, like he's like one of the only solid goalkeepers around.
Yeah, not somebody that. I mean, last season he was good in the Championship, but not brilliant. I had my doubts he'd be able to make the step up, but yep, he's been fine. Loser Aberdeen fans. Like, chucking a vodka bottle, man. I mean, chucking a vodka bottle.
There's got to be a line. I like, there's chucking chips, right? Like, Cochrane. Not good, but there's some sort of like, no one's going to get hurt. But when we start getting to like bottles and stuff, like, I mean, we're talking someone's going to have a serious injury, and that can't be what you want to do. Can't actually want Jim Goodwin to be in hospital. You'll be banned for life. You'll go to jail.
Yeah.
Like, it can't be what you want to happen.
Yeah, it's one of those ones as well. It's like it's not even like a derby game where obviously
finally someone speaks for the Aberdeen and Dundee United fans.
It's not like a proper kind of heated derby rival where it's like and this is not an excuse for it at all, but it's fans do just kind of build up opponents into being these evil entities kind of thing. This is just a guy who used to manage you and was quite rubbish. Like, where's the hate? Like, it's annoying. Don't get me wrong, I can understand why it's annoying, but fucking hell, get a grip of yourself.
Like chucking a bottle of vodka.
And also as well, I also had, because this before I noted this down even before I saw that had happened. Aberdeen fans dressed as Santa at Rugby Park got a bit of a laugh. I just think the fans naked of this in general. I just something I would never do. I would never like dress up to go to a football game to that extent because I just always think how much a tit you look like if you get bumped. And that's what happened to them.
Yeah, but at least someone does it, and it is a spectacle. And it is funny when people do it. I had the losers as Aberdeen strikers because they're all in bother in terms of Aberdeen are almost definitely going to go into the transfer market to try and sign a striker because Sockler gets chances and he's quite good at playing on the last man and he's quite quick and he's athletic, but he's not he's not reliable in front of goal whatsoever.
No, he's not reliable in front of goal. He can't really play with his back to goal.
And we're at the stage that where Aberdeen are and what that starts giving them, and the fact Rangers still faltering. Second still, if they put it back together and sign a good striker, second's there to be. It is there to be had.
Yeah.
It's certainly not impossible. And then you've got Kevin Nisbet, who's coming back and you thought was going to sort of rebuild his career after a bit of a shoddy spell at Millwall with injuries and losing his Scotland place, where he just looks just cumbersome.
Yeah.
And like doesn't look anywhere near, because something that was always good about Nisbet is that he was really his upper body's strong when he came back, when he was at his best and at his fittest. So that meant he was really good with his back to goal, and he was such a really technically proficient player. But now all he looks like is again, like all he's got is, if there's a chance and he's calm and because he's quite a calm player in front of goal, he side foots a lot, and that I'd rely on him to score like a 1-on-1 or a ball across the box. But then all the other part of his game as a lone striker isn't there to be had, and he doesn't look particularly fit. So that's also an issue. They've tried Duke up there. That's not particularly worked. And then they even went, and that's finally, they even went for Ambrose, who started in the last game before this. And I was jaw on the floor, because his cameo performance against Hibs was like all-timer bad. And that's the third time this season I've sat and watched a game where he's come off the bench, and I just cannot believe he's being paid money. I just cannot, he's absolutely, dreadful. Just smacks the ball all over the place. First touch, like a trampoline, all the jokes that you would think of. Slow, can't turn. What the why is this guy being signed? And then suddenly, after that, after a terrible performance that they lose, and he's been he hit the fucking roof of the stand with a shot against Hibs. Then I looked down, he's fucking playing against Kamara. He's starting. How does that work? How does he do that? And then go, Kem up, Ambrose. You were great. And you go, big start for
Here's
you.
your reward.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it when I looked down. That's unbelievable. So, we've got to him. It's certainly the furthest thing away from the answer of anyone at Aberdeen. So I think all these guys have all been given sort of a chance, and none of them have taken it. And it's starting to cost Aberdeen, because they need to get, they're in such tight games that they need to get out of holes. And you need your strikers are normally the ones that get you out of those holes. So they're going to have to go and get a striker. And all these guys probably are either going to, Nisbet might end up back at Millwall. And then, like I said, Soccer, they'll be looking to empty him at the end of the season, almost guaranteed.
So, winners, I've got Josh Nesbitt for Ross County.
Josh Nesbitt, yeah. Josh, and I also had Ross County fans, because they've went 2 years without an away win. And I've done a bit on A View from the Terrace about this before, saying these guys are the heroes of football. I mean, trying to organise your pals to go fucking miles every second week as well, because it's not even just an away day that we go on it from time to time. It's they've got to go fucking miles pretty much every single time. And there's groups of them that will be doing it every single time. And to get nothing for 2 years, that is soul destroying. So I was glad that the one they got was a pasting of someone, 3-0.
3-0 going on 5 or 6. They absolutely pumped Dundee.
And then again, the fans, another reward. And even though they were absolutely fucking minging against Hearts, they get which people talk about last minute winners being the best feeling in football. I think we've moved into this new world where it's 2 goals in injury time, which is the new thing in Scottish football that happens. I think it's at least once a month that a team comes back from the death, either to salvage a draw or to get a win. And that is the new best thing that happens in football, is 2 injury time goals from nothing that gets you sorted. Because for example, the Rocky Bashiri one for Hibs against Aberdeen has absolutely turned the season on its head for 2 clubs. It couldn't have been any different. And then again, so for Ross County to get those 2 things back to back after some real trying times, fair play to them. But yes, Fowler, Josh Nisbet, he was good.
So yeah, well, he got the goal and he won a penalty against Dundee, and then he obviously scored against Hearts as well, got them back in the game. And I think when I first saw him, you kind of think, right, he's this diminutive Australian, he's supposed to be this creative player, and then you kind of see him and it was like, well, he looks all right because he's got good touch, and even though he's 5'3", he's quite tenacious, but he just looked neat and tidy, like a lot of kind of sideways passing and just kind of keeping possession. And that's a big part of his game. He's not like, I see, basically, I'm building up to talk about the fact that him and Noah Chilvers, County fans have been doubting whether they can have the both of them in the team together and the team properly function. Obviously, it worked very well against Dundee.
Yeah.
Didn't work against Hearts at all. I mean, I know that they got a draw out of the game and Nisbet scored, but it didn't work at all. And there's a feeling that between the two of them, due to Nisbet's lack of height, due to Chilvers' lack of kind of athleticism in general, that there's too much missing there in terms of kind of size, strength, athleticism overall that you kind of need in the middle of the park. So that's why I've seen Chilvers a lot recently being played almost as a forward or as a kind of number 10, and County have gone to like a 5-4-1 type of system in order to accommodate him. I've also, again, seen criticism for County fans about Chilvers. I'm sorry, yous are getting relegated with him. He puts you on his back. He constantly tries things, but he tries things because, well, I think that's who he is as a player, and I like players like that. But also, if he's not doing it, you don't really have anybody else. But Nisbet is starting to show a bit more quality in the final third, and it may get to the point where they have to make a decision on one or the other, even though they are a little bit different because of what I said. Especially if this formation starts to, like, opponents start to pick more holes in it, and Cowie finds that he can't really trust it anymore. But what I would say, we're coming up to January, see if they could get like a Mo Silla type, like a big athletic guy who's not really much of a footballer, but is great at stopping the opposition. Then I think you could have a midfield three where you've got like a Mo Silla type, Chilvers and Nisbet, and then you could go back to like a 3-5-2 where you have two players up front who are actually forwards. But Nisbet certainly coming to the fore a bit more, showing a bit more confidence, just getting used to the league a bit more, trusting himself more in the final third, getting goals, getting assists, making an impact. I think that's 3 goals in his last 6 games now.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, about Chilvers. The last time I done a pod with you was after the Hibs beat Ross County. And, like, what I said about Chilvers there is that I didn't think it was good enough to make him a one-man band.
Yeah.
Because they basically put everything on his shoulders but gave him nothing to aim at in terms of there was no Hale and there was no White. And that sort of, like, demeans him as a player because obviously he's creative. He likes to make passes, and you just feel like Chilvers and Hale, the weapons-wise, match up really nicely. A guy who wants to make slide rule passes, who's always looking to play on the turn, who's always wanting to put balls into the last third. You know, I just say, just a high-risk player who doesn't ever just want to keep it simple. Then Hale's perfect because Hale's always on the move and he always wants to hit shots early. So it's like you just take your team into. Don't get me wrong, this should be annoying as fuck to watch when you just do the same things over and over and over again. But when you're counting, you're not very good. That's sort of where you end up. You go, weapon here, weapon there. You just keep trying to link up for the whole game, and you will 2 or 3 times. And with Hale's scoring record, there we've got a goal. So I think that Chilvers needs to play, but I think Hale needs to play with him at all times. And yeah, you're right. They now, for January, the beauty for Cowie, with Hale, Chilvers and Nisbet all showing separately, maybe if not all together, that they're all sort of good enough that they can all impact the game at different times. That now there's maybe you can target, they're not going to have loads of money to spend, but you're saying there's like, it's a style of player to target that might be able to unlock. This is like a sort of front three or a creative 3 players that do. And then we also have Jordan White for the inevitable lob the ball in the box. Craig Gordon will drop it. He'll knock it in. So like, yeah, at least that. And a guy like Cowie, who's a very solution-based manager, who's constantly looking for answers and is willing to keep asking questions.
Yeah.
He doesn't just stick with things. He tries things all the time. That's maybe a good situation to get himself into. Now knowing that if I only need one player, like Craig Fowler, just name them. Let's go and fight them.
Or Silla's not been playing well for Dundee this season. You can maybe... We've mentioned
I
Dundee
don't
a few
know if
times.
Dundee are in a position to be letting players go.
Well, there you go.
The place are falling apart.
There's a good link, because we've mentioned Dundee a few times, and I've got one of each for Dundee, a winner and a loser. So we may as well go with the point you were just about to make there. A loser is Tony Docherty, because, well, not only did his team get absolutely pumped against Ross County in one of the worst performances, maybe even the worst performance since he's taken charge as manager, but then they go and get a good result away to St Mirren. But something I don't think I've ever seen before in a game, where you lose two players from one position in the one passage of play, and the two incidents were completely separate. So I've seen it before where you've had two players subbed off at the same time because they've clashed heads, or they've clattered into each other and both have got injured. But you just had Jordan McGee down with some problem, and then Clement goes to clear a ball at the byline and seems to get his ankle caught in the turf, and he has to go off as well. So they've now got 5 centre-halves who are out injured. They're without Shaughnessy, Robertson, Portales, and now likely Clement and McGee, and they've got the derby up next. So Docherty rebounds well. Not been a great season. I think he was maybe starting to be under pressure a little bit after that county game. Rebounds very well with that victory over St Mirren, but
at what cost?
They do well in that game with their patchwork defence, because that happened at 0-0. But if these guys are out for any length of time, because we know that the other guys are, Shaughnessy, Robertson and Portales, then yeah, that's going to come back to bite eventually. And that's, he's a loser without it, with it being half his fault that he's in the loser category.
The winner that comes out of this is possibly Rick Astley.
Yeah.
So he came in for Everton.
He's now marshalling the defence.
Yeah. I mean, he came in for Everton last season and he was nowhere near this at 11. And he's got a run now. And it'd be fair to him. I mean, they've also had to recall Graham from Falkirk. But he's been solid, Astley, in the last few weeks. And I mean, he even contributed yesterday in setting up Simon Murray's second goal, which was brilliant. And I have to agree with Stevie Thompson on the sports scene that Simon Murray scoring a goal is one of the funnest sights in Scottish football.
So I've got him. He's my Dundee winner.
He just runs. He runs so fast when he scores, and he just goes absolutely raj. And it's sort of like something I really enjoy, because Simon Murray's, again, when I was talking about Dundee United players, a guy who's just been questioned his whole career, and it's like every single time he does it, you can see that it's like, I'm proving some cunt wrong, and that's what bleeds out of him every time he scores a goal. And I just think it's always just so fun to see how angry he gets every time he does it.
Yeah, there's always that outpouring of emotion whenever he scores. Like he's just gotten over the biggest goal drought ever.
Yeah.
One drought he had, that was the goals that he scored at the weekend. That was the first time he scored this season, and Dundee have won the game. So it was his 5th and 6th goals of the season. His first goal in the league this season was against Hibs. So that was a draw at Easter Road. So that obviously would have meant a lot to him. But then he scored against Aberdeen, St Johnstone, and Aberdeen again, all defeats. So, and the second goal is just, both of them are examples of his incredible determination that he has. But the second goal in particular, he's just the only guy in that box who's like charging, almost sprinting full pelt to try and get on the end of it. It's used far too much as a cliche at times, but that was literally just a case of him wanting it more than anybody else.
Aye. And now, like, we're talking about sort of Rick Astley being a winner coming into it, and now he's going to be an important player. You've got Mulligan as well, like, who now looks like a massive player for them. He's going to get a run at centre mid where he was really good in the Championship a couple of years ago. But you know, Cameron probably might get sold in January, so then Mulligan becomes the main sort of driving force. And like you're saying, it's just the players from the bench, or in Astley's case, the stands, who are now being charged with some of the most important roles in the team. So even if they just do all right and Dundee are in 7th or 8th or whatever, depending on what they do in terms of business in January, then those guys, it'll be power to them. But there is also the alternative of properly getting dragged in, because Rick Astley isn't the best defender and Mulligan isn't really the best player to be driving your midfield forward. So it'll be interesting. It will
be. Right, I have 2 winners left. What do you have left?
Oh, let me have a peek. Jim Goodwin, Ross County fan. No, I think I'm all out of winners.
You got any losers then? Before we,
I had Leek at Ross County, because we were talking about him. And just when you were talking about Halkett, but I forgot to bring it up because it was just like every single defender involved in goals in that Ross County Hearts game were just people just evacuating where they were for no apparent reason. Oh no, I do have another winner. I do.
Yeah, but actually, let me talk about that Ryan Leake one, because I forgot about that. Yeah, so it's
I thought you would do. You joined us immensely on the chat.
Aye, well, I joined it at the time when it looked like Hearts were going to win a football game, but not so much what happened afterwards. But yeah, that first Hearts goal, it's nicely worked with Boyce dropping deep, receiving the ball, threading through the through ball for Wilson. Wilson takes a really nice first touch. His finish, I don't think is necessarily that great. I think the goalie could maybe do better. It kind of goes through him a little bit. But Wilson does a good thing of hitting it hard, keeping it low, and making it difficult for the goalie to save it. And Wilson's now got 5 league goals for the season. Mm-hmm. I think he's tied with Bruce Anderson, and then there's only one other. I think Pap Gay is the only other player who's got a better goals per minutes ratio in the Premiership that scored at least 4 times. Uh-huh. So Wilson,
I don't like it. I said young strikers coming through and being good and scoring goals. It's not a Hearts thing. That's a Hibs thing. So
him and James Penrith are literally the only good things about this Hearts season. So. But Leake for that first goal. So Boyce kind of goes to shape like he's going to play the ball to the right, and Leake kind of follows that, and it just leaves Wilson by himself. There's no player there. Leake goes to match the run of something that doesn't exist. It just leaves his man all alone.
Does he not get hooked at half time?
He got hooked at half time.
It's just like, well, you're chasing ghosts, man. You had too good a Christmas on the bench for you.
Right, so you say you've got a winner, so I've got 2, so I'll do one of mine first, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to me for the last one. So let's go for Caleb Boyd-Muntz.
Oh, he's back.
Terrific goal at the end of that Rangers game, like a 92nd minute winner, and the technique in it was superb. I think the best angle is the one from behind the goal, where you see that the way he hits it and how much he arrows it and how far away it is from Butland. Like it's perfectly struck. It's superb, and he's really struggled this season because St Mirren have just kind of. He used to have the guys in midfield, and I think he's been the biggest. What's hurt him the most is the loss of Keanu Bacchus. Like they've missed guys who have done all the running for him, and they could have gone back to that with like. They could have gone back to that recently because I've gone back to the 3-4-3, which worked well from last year, and you had even like McMenamin and Kilty would do a lot of running. Mm-hmm. So it would be Boyd-Muntz and Bacchus or O'Hara, and then you'd have the 2 number 10s as well. So there's a lot of guys doing the running for him because Boyd-Muntz is a very good technical player, but he's not the most athletic of players. But this season, they have gone back to that recently, but they've gone back to it's been working with the other players like Killian Phillips coming in and playing very well. And so he was just. And I think his probably confidence is a bit down because he wasn't very good at the start of the season when the team wasn't really suiting him as well as it did last campaign. He also started the season with an injury that also probably impacted on him. So that's a big moment for him. But it also shows how much he is still struggling to get in the team, that he has that moment and he's still not in the starting 11 for the next game. I mean, the good thing about him is that he came on when they were getting beat 2-1, so he's not in really any way at fault for the loss. And it might also encourage Stephen Robinson to change things up for the next game. But it was good for him to get that moment. And also as well, I just had a look at his Wikipedia, and in his personal life, it lists which school he went to in Belfast. Let's just say I think he would have enjoyed that extra especially.
Finally, someone has to do it. Someone has to check where these people are from.
Someone has to check which school they're from.
It's a Scottish football must. It's a rite of passage. You want to play here? What fucking school did you go to? I was looking at, like, actually brings me on to it because I was just going to say a winner 17-year-olds. So we had James Wilson obviously scoring a double. The second one, like they're both just proper striker goals as well. Like the flashing header, it's a great run across. He also nearly scored when he ran across the front post as well, and it was a good save. And it just like, he's got all the instincts. I know people might talk about other elements of his game, but the other elements of his game will come when he's not fucking a child playing against men. You know, this guy, I always find when you're a young striker like that, part of the deal is you're trying to stay out the way. It's all about your movement. You're trying to find space. You want to just concentrate on the things that you know you're good at that age, which is shooting. You're probably, if you're a 17-year-old striker in the first team, my guess is you're probably a really, really, really good finisher. And that's why you're skipping a few levels. And that's what you're seeing with Wilson, and everything else will come. But he's again becoming sort of like Hearts' main attacking threat, which seems wild. But again, these are the opportunities that come out of being shit, playing for shit teams. Or like again, what I was saying earlier, when the games are coming thick and fast, this is when the opportunities actually arise, and it's about being able to take that. But St Mirren, obviously Mooney, and Penman both came off the bench, who are both 17, and Mooney's already got a goal against St Johnstone. He got an assist over these 2 games as well, and his name's being marched about all sorts of clubs. When I looked, those bloody gossip columns of him at Arsenal, for crying out loud, they were like really, really, really big clubs. The list was really big clubs after him. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops. But again, it's something we spoke about on other podcasts. I know you and Taylor talks about a lot. It's like, this is basically the reality now. If we want to see young players come through that are good in Scotland, you're basically going to have to give them a chance from the second they're old enough to play.
Yeah, this has been a huge kind of topic of conversation in the Scottish football discourse over the last year, and you do wonder whether managers are just kind of becoming a bit aware of it and are going, oh yeah, you know what, I probably should. Like, it's not like managers are going to listen to the criticism and go, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do that now. But it's more that it's just like managers will know themselves the benefit of playing youngsters and giving them more minutes, because if you do unearth a gem, then you can sell them on for a lot of money and make money in ways that you're not going to through any other means.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing in Scottish football about, we don't get a lot of money for TV. And we always, a lot of teams don't make a whole lot through people through the gate, but you can make, like Motherwell are about to make
6-7 million or whatever, yeah.
Maybe not quite that much, but I would say upwards of 3. Definitely upwards of 3 million.
I think they might be more like...
I would say around about. I think you can say around about 5, but it's probably not all going to be all up front.
Yeah.
I would say like a lot of it would be based on other stuff, but they could definitely get at least 3 up front, and that's guaranteed going to be their money. Whereas, how else are Motherwell going to make 3 million? I mean, you can do it with player trading, but bringing through young players is just a good way of trying to do that. And also, teams just need a bit of that kind of youthful exuberance in them as well. And maybe it's
carefreeness. They're not stuck in the past where all the hits they've taken over the years impacts every decision they make.
And it's probably just something that managers have just focused, kind of got tunnel vision on one thing, which is the experience and guys who are not going to let you down. Because I mean, you can, like Bobby Wills, who's been playing a lot for Killie recently. Bobby Wills is at fault for the Hibs goal. He completely mistimes his jump, and that probably doesn't happen if you're starting with Bruce Anderson
or whatever, yeah.
Something like that. But you kind of just want, so that's why managers are reluctant to do it. But there is an ebb and flow to it. There is a give and take, and there is benefits to having these players in the team. And maybe just the discourse around it has led to Scottish football managers being like, oh, do you know what? Maybe I could give more young players a chance, kind of thing. And it's just kind of that, not necessarily them changing their mind about anything, but just that kind of psychological subtle hint that gets them to act slightly differently. And that's why we're starting to see over the last couple of weeks more young players being given chances. And it's good that they're taking them, because that means that more are going to get opportunities as a result.
So, yeah, that was fun.
From youngsters that cost clubs nothing to one man that cost a club £11 million. Arnie Engels, I've got him as my final winner from the festive period. Scored the penalty against Motherwell, had a decent performance.
Wow.
Oh, man, the guy takes a mean penalty.
That's worth it, buddy. It's worth it all. You give us an Ali G impression there.
Yeah. Very topical. I don't know what that was.
Apologies. Scored a penalty.
That's now we're going to do anytime Engels scores a penalty. Just do that.
Okay.
Right, but God's sake, what up-to-date cultural reference that was. No, so Engels against St Johnstone was, I'm not going to say it was his best Celtic performance this season, but certainly one of them, and maybe one of his better performances in these type of matches, where he was just kind of taking the game by the scruff of the neck a lot more than he has, where he's passed the buck an awful lot in games. I think you saw that, maybe the best example of that was the match at Tynecastle, where he just didn't really want to do anything wrong, and it meant he was actually quite rubbish in the end and contributing nothing.
Unlike bringing a young player through who's not bothered, who doesn't have these issues, Engels is obviously thinking about the price tag when he's playing.
Aye. So, but I did see some Celtic fans saying that he might not actually, because there's a lot of thought that he would just improve because he's in a new country, he's got the price tag, it will just take time to settle, etc., etc. But I did see some Celtic fans worrying that when they signed him, his lateral passing stats were among some of the worst in the Bundesliga, and that's how Celtic play in their midfield. And it was just whether they'd sign somebody for his potential and his undoubted talent, but did he actually fit Brendan Rodgers' system at all? And it's still obviously a reasonable enough question because he's not been great overall and certainly not matched the price tag. But I think games like this one, and I've seen it in flashes elsewhere as well. The cup final against Rangers, he showed it in flashes. Cup semi-final against Rangers, against Aberdeen, he showed it in flashes. But it just looks like he's just got too much talent for that to really be a problem at the Scottish football level. And I think ultimately he's going to make Celtic bend to him rather than him bending to Celtic in the long term, because you just see the fact that he's got, that cross for Kyogo's goal is superb. He's got a great delivery. He's got great technique. He's tall, he's agile, he's also pretty fast as well.
Aye, man, I'm picturing him driving like fuck at some point, like dribbling and driving from the midfield right on, like ball carrying a bit more. That's how I picture him.
And that's what you saw against St John's. I thought you saw him matching the urgency that's required in Scottish football, rather than somebody, he just in the other games just looked a bit too kind of continental, like a bit too lackadaisical, a bit too laid back on the ball, not trying to force things. You have the talent, pal. Just go at this jobber earning $1,000 a week.
Always. This is what Chris has said this for. We were talking about, the second season syndrome. Celtic players, when they become brilliant, it's like they just realise everyone's fucking pish, actually. It takes them a while to they're like, why am I not just picking the ball up and just running past the ball? Just none of them will do anything. And then eventually that clicks, and then they're the best player. They're the best player in the league almost instantly. But to be fair, without pissing on chips, Hatate, Bernardo were having an absolute riot against St Johnstone as well, just puppeteering everyone. So yeah, maybe I would as well.
It was against St Johnstone.
Against St Johnstone, who were able to rest players for the Hibs games because they wrote that game off. So we'll do a line. We'll draw a line maybe. But yeah, I know what you mean. Engels, he will come good. It is as simple as that. I am absolutely knackered after this podcast because I can't help but get animated. And I can't help but get it. And people always say this to me. I've seen this a few times recently. Oh, Tony's going to knock over his water whenever they watch on the telly or when they're watching on this. It's actually happened today because I'm not 100%. So when I've been waving, I knocked my water and it spilled all over me. You didn't see that. It's all over the floor around me.
Well, Tony, I would say that for those listening and for those watching, despite the fact you were not 100%, I think you could never tell. I think that was a performance where it's like a football performance where somebody's like playing through injury and the fans afterwards like, that was a heroic display. You're a Clevin Dickamona at Easter Road. You're having to get helped off the park at full time.
Fair enough.
Right. Thank you to everybody for listening. A bit of news ahead of next week. Currently the plan right now, and my cat has been quite sprightly about today. You would have seen him in the background.
I've seen him behind you. I've been watching him because obviously I'm wondering if you're coming on holiday with me, so I'm judging his every move.
So I've got a vet's appointment tomorrow, and if all goes well and they give us the green light to go on holiday, I will be going on holiday on Friday with Tony and with another friend of ours. So I will be away for a week. So next week there will be a main show on the Monday. There will be a lower league show on the Thursday. Neither of them will be topical because I am not taking my laptop with me and editing podcasts while I'm in Tenerife. So there will be a Monday podcast where the plan is at present for me and Craig Anderson to do the best players on each side in the Scottish Premiership, and then we'll do a side podcast with the worst players for Patreon if we get the time for that. And there is
that will get the money in, then nothing will.
Exactly. You want the worst player. That's the fun bit. And then on the Thursday, there will be a podcast release where it is Craig Telfer and Fraser Clark, and they have done a lengthy podcast talk. They've put together the best 11 of the ideal Iron Brew / Clydesdale men.
So all right, okay. Classic lower league players, yeah.
Yeah, iconic Scottish lower league players. So that should be a lot of fun as well. So that's what's happening next Monday and next Thursday. And if there is any change to that, then it's because my cat is still ill and I can't go on holiday. So pray for my mental health and my emotional health. Pray for Nacho. Pray for everything. And to everybody who's listening, I hope you have a great new year, and we'll talk to you again in 2025.
Yes, brilliant.